The day has finally come. The day the boy from the future warned them about. The day when the remnant of the Red Ribbon Army makes their move. An assault by the final weapons created by the power-hungry and revenge-driven scientist Dr. Gero. An old man and a fat robot. Honestly, it isn't hard to understand why Kazuhiko Toriyama wasn't particularly impressed with the original villains intended for the android saga, and over the course of the story's development as the threat shifted from one set of androids to another, and finally to Cell, the goalposts would be moved so often that audiences were divided, especially between Japan and the West, on whether what they'd read was good or just okay. I'm Sophie B, and welcome to Powerhouse. The year is 1991, hot off the heels of the theatrical release of the sci-fi film classic Terminator 2: Judgment Day, and Dragon Ball Z mangaka Akira Toriyama decides that for his next story arc, he wants to make robotic enemies from the now-defunct Red Ribbon Army the primary antagonists. Fitting as the original Red Ribbon Army arc of Dragon Ball debuted in 1985, only 1 year after the release of The Terminator, and featured a plotline incorporating robotic enemies inspired from both that film, in Major Metallotron, and the monster movie classic Frankenstein, in Android 8. The story arc kicks off with the appearance of a time traveler from a not-so-distant bad future, where machines have begun a campaign of death and destruction against humankind. Sound familiar? The arrival of the character Trunks, future son of Bulma and Vegeta, was a bombshell of incredible proportions. There stood Frieza, the most powerful villain to date ever to exist in the series, a terror on a galactic scale, alongside his heretofore unmentioned and equally powerful father, King Cold. This villain had been such a challenge that Goku needed to pull out an entirely new power to defeat him. And as the Warriors of Earth collectively wet themselves over what the hell they could even do to survive until Goku somehow arrived to save the day, if Goku could even do so, suddenly appears a handsome young man with lavender, Eddie Furlong as young John Connor hair, an awesome sword, and the very same ability that Goku only recently exhibited on the planet Namek, the Super Saiyan transformation. By the time Goku finally shows up to the party, Trunks has not only swiftly dealt with the threats of Frieza and Cold, he has more bombshells to drop. A heart virus, loss of the Dragon Balls, the deaths of every Z-fighter, and the domination of the planet by a pair of nigh unstoppable killing machines. And the Half-Saiyan hybrid does such a great job building up how much of a threat the androids, cyborgs, artificial humans, Jinzo Ningen, whatever are, despite the description of them being left vague because designs weren't yet finalized, that readers truly feel like the Warriors of Earth may need every minute of the ensuing 3-year time skip in order to have any chance of defeating them. But then, Akira Toriyama shows his designs for this story arc's big bads to his editor, and all that groundwork laid out by the mangaka when he introduced Trunks begins to crack. Kazuhiko Toriyama hates the designs, arguing the validity of a threat by some old guy in a fat China doll robot, so it's back to the drawing board. Instead of an old man and fat robot, Toriyama decides to approach the androids from another angle, creating a pair of attractive yet odd teenage delinquent twins, androids 17 and 18. In addition to these twins, the mangaka also creates a third character, the fully robotic gentle giant Android 16, quite possibly also inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger's heroic role in T2 in much the same way Major Metallotron had been inspired by Arnold's villainous role in The Terminator. 17 and 18 are written as callous, selfish, and unmotivated to do anything they wouldn't find fun. Just so happens that killing humans tends to be on that list. 16, meanwhile, is written as a stoic and kind-hearted lover of nature, whose only known objective, due to being an incomplete creation, is the murder of the one responsible for the utter destruction of the Red Ribbon Army, Son Goku. The dynamic between the three antagonists is legitimately entertaining, as 17 and 18 showcase an evil that is almost as petty as Commander Red himself waging war solely to become tall. 17, intent on getting an opportunity to drive a car, despite having the ability to fly, insists the group travel by road, and encourages them to steal an ice cream truck. 18 arranges for the trio to stop at a boutique so that she can look for something to replace her old outfit. After all, girls gotta accessorize. Meanwhile, 16 may as well be a giant child in the back seat asking,
"Can we kill Son Goku yet? May we go and murder Son Goku? Will it assist us in murdering Son Goku? Did he say Goku? I insist we still kill Son Goku. On the grounds that I want to. Sure is a lot of not killing Goku going on right now. You know what would fix that?
Is it killing Goku?
A good old rousing round of killing Goku."
Unfortunately, the new designs don't go over well with Toriyama either. The new enemy should be scary, not a couple of brats. And thus, we enter the imperfect Cell Saga. And what remained of any importance of the Red Ribbon Army's revenge against Goku and their quest for world domination vanishes, like oh so many absorbed citizens of Gingertown. Cell is terrifying to look at, horrifying in his casual drinking of humans, and makes his debut by immediately hitting Piccolo, newly fused with Kami, with the Worf effect. When Cell arrives at the site of 17 and Piccolo's knockdown, drag-out slobber knocker, seriously, the whole fight is Looney Tunes and I love it. His jump-in power is so intimidating to Piccolo that the Namekian can't even fathom how many people must have been incorporated into the creature's biomass. Toriyama then ups the ante by making Cell's absorption of 17 somehow terrifying in a completely different way compared to his absorption of the nameless masses. While he opted for the old drink 'em like a milkshake approach for dealing with the humans, he opts to sinisterly swallow his cyborg siblings whole, and the viewer is shown every moment of it. With the absorption of 17, Imperfect Cell becomes Semi-Perfect Cell. And somehow, Toriyama's new editor manages to find reason to be dissatisfied. Since the time of Semi-Perfect Cell's debut, Toriyama has himself stated that of all the androids he introduced across this entire story arc, Semi-Perfect Cell was his favorite to draw. There's no accounting for taste, I guess. And he'd been intended to have a much larger presence in the manga, until Yu Kondo, Toriyama's new editor after Torishima, began to complain that Cell should hurry up and get to his perfect form. This resulted in Semi-Perfect Cell only lasting a few chapters before finally absorbing Android 18 due to what could very well be Vegeta's most idiotic, arrogant, vain, and did I mention idiotic decision in the entirety of the Dragon Ball series up to and including Super. Perfect Cell is really where the story decides to become a tale intended for Gohan, as it isn't until after his introduction, with training between Goku and his son beginning in the Room of Spirit and Time, that the narrative starts to focus on what had been largely neglected since the Namek Saga: Gohan's hidden potential and suppressed rage. We all know how it plays out in the end, as Gohan achieves a new form of power in one of, if not the, most incredible scene of the entire series. He gets 18 back so that Krillin can finally have himself a girlfriend, obliterates Cell, Cell gets better, and then we get the greatest beam struggle since Goku vs. Vegeta in the Saiyan Saga. And what, you ask, is the point of this long summary of the Cell Saga, Sophie? I'm glad you asked that. See, it's a curious thing when you pull back the curtain on the entire process of creating the story from the Trunks Saga through the Cell Game Saga, because it reveals not only how much Toriyama had to come up with new concepts entirely by the seat of his pants, purely due to his editor meddling, but also that this sort of thing can occur even when the author already has a story they'd like to tell. There had been build-up for the androids, for the fact that they were linked to Goku's past with the Red Ribbon Army, and for the terror that filled everyone's hearts knowing that every warrior of Earth that the reader had come to know and love had died at their hands because Goku couldn't be there to help them in the moment when they were caught unprepared by the robotic menace. And when 19 and 20 show up, for all that they might not have looked particularly intimidating, they do immediately set the bar pretty high, obliterating a city, murdering Yamcha, or trying to at least. I mean, I'm really surprised he didn't die when he got a hand through his heart. Oh, and let's not forget wrecking Goku's shit. An admittedly disease-addled Goku, but still. 16, 17, and 18 were all very interesting in and of themselves, with 17's teenage pettiness, Krillin and 18's build-up of a dating Catwoman dynamic, and the robot with a gentle heart and love for life and nature, who wanted to kill Goku for no other reason than it was the only thing he'd ever been programmed to do. What might the arc have been like had Toriyama never complained about 19 and 20? Would we have still seen Gohan become the focus character? Would 19 have been so easily dealt with? Or would the fat doll have drained more of the team's energy? After all, despite that ability's big introduction, we barely see it used. What if 16, 17, and 18? If Toriyama had been satisfied with them as the big bads, where would the arc have gone? The History of Trunks anime special that dove into the time travelers' history with the androids was quite popular, and contained what some might argue is the absolute coolest and definitely most tragic iteration of Gohan, even compared to his Super Saiyan 2 self, some might say. If the terrible trio of technological terror had remained the primary threat, would the story have instead shifted its focus to Trunks, giving him a chance to help all the warriors of this timeline after failing future Gohan so badly? Cell is a cool villain, especially to us Westerners. There's definitely no arguing that. I personally love him more than Frieza and Boo. But most would agree that throughout this arc, the running gag of actually Jiro had even more creations, so beautifully called out in Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
Wait, what? So I'm pretty sure that's 3 androids you've missed. Do I hear 4?
Another android created by Dr. Gero.
Do I hear 5?
Found 3 more androids.
Damn it! 3 whole androids, huh? Pretty sure that makes 8. Never letting the boy live this one down.
Got pretty old pretty fast. It's easy to see why Toriyama insisted on being able to cut loose as he entered what would become the final arc of Z. Asking what if is a staple of the Dragon Ball community. Yet I don't see very many people considering what this period of time would be like without Cell as the central villain. I think I'd like to. I'm sure people could come up with some pretty interesting ideas. If you like this episode of Dragonalysis, please be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell to turn on notifications and all that lovely jazz. It really helps. And if you'd like to help a little bit more, consider becoming a patron and help support the show. See you next time!